The monk who survived being hanged twice and laughed about it. Everything you think you know about medieval executions is wrong. What if I told you that in 1594, a Spanish monk was hanged not once, but twice, and instead of dying, he stood up, dusted off his robe, and cracked jokes about the whole thing like it was just another Tuesday? The textbooks won't tell you this, but the Inquisition's most embarrassing failure involved a man who literally laughed in death's face. Twice. 1. The first hanging when the rope broke. You don't learn this in history class, but on October 24, 1594, Brother Diego de la Cruz stood on the gallows in Valladolid with a hemp rope around his neck that was supposed to be thick enough to hang an ox. The crowd of 3,000 people, including the local bishop who'd condemned him for heresy, watched as the executioner pulled the lever. What happened next defied every law of physics and probability that the 16th century understood. The rope snapped, not at the knot, not at the beam, right in the middle, as if God himself had taken a celestial knife to it. Brother Diego dropped 6 feet straight down onto the muddy ground below, the broken rope still dangling from his neck like the world's worst necklace. The impact knocked him unconscious for exactly 43 seconds, yes, people counted, during which time his body lay twisted in a position that would have made a contortionist weep. His left arm bent backwards at an angle that shouldn't exist. His tongue, swollen from the brief strangulation, protruded purple and grotesque from between cracked lips. One witness later wrote that his eyes bulged like overripe plums about to burst their skin. But here's what the official records don't mention. When Brother Diego opened his eyes, the first thing he did was look directly at the bishop and wink. Then he started laughing, a deep, guttural sound that echoed off the cathedral walls like demonic thunder. "Is that the best the Inquisition can do?" he called out, his voice hoarse but unmistakably amused. "My grandmother ties better knots." The crowd erupted. Some people fell to their knees, convinced they'd witnessed divine intervention. Others started chanting "Milagro, milagro, miracle, miracle." The executioner, a man who'd hanged 247 people without a single failure, stood frozen with his mouth hanging open like a landed fish. The bishop's face went through 17 distinct shades of purple, each more apoplectic than the last. But it gets worse. 2. The second hanging. When they tried again, you think surviving one hanging is improbable. Wait until you hear what happened next. Because instead of taking this as a sign from God, or at minimum, investing in better rope, the authorities decided Brother Diego needed to die twice as hard. They brought in the ropemaker from Burgos, 60 miles away, who specialized in maritime rigging. This wasn't some hastily twisted hemp cord. This was 3-strand rope, each strand containing 120 yarns, tarred and stretched for maximum strength. They tested it beforehand with a 400-pound stone. The stone broke before the rope did. On October 25, 1594, they tried again. Same gallows, same crowd, same Brother Diego, though now he looked like he'd been through a war. His neck was ringed with purple bruises so dark they appeared black in the morning light. His left arm was splintered with pieces of barrel stave held together with strips of his own undershirt. His face had swollen to twice its normal size, giving him the appearance of a grotesque caricature of himself. The smell coming off him, equal parts unwashed body, infection, and sheer terror, wafted over the first 3 rows of spectators. This time they did everything right. They used a longer drop, 8 feet instead of 6, to ensure the neck would break cleanly. They positioned the knot precisely under the left ear where the spinal cord would sever instantly. The executioner had practiced on cadavers stolen from the medical college. They were taking no chances. The lever pulled. Brother Diego dropped. And the entire gallows collapsed. The main beam, which had been standing since 1482 and had supported over 800 hangings, snapped in the middle like a dry twig. The platform disintegrated into splinters. Brother Diego, rope and all, crashed through the structure and landed in a heap of broken wood and twisted metal. The beam itself came down directly on top of him, a 200-pound piece of oak that should have crushed him like a beetle. Instead, it missed his head by the width of 2 fingers and pinned his already injured left arm. The rope, still around his neck, had somehow looped itself around the broken beam in a way that actually prevented the expected hanging. Brother Diego lay there, half buried in debris, with the noose still tight around his neck but not quite tight enough. He was unconscious for 3 minutes this time. When he came to, he was still pinned but very much alive. And yes, he was still laughing. Through cracked and bleeding lips, he managed to wheeze out, "You know, this is starting to feel personal." 3. The medical examination that made doctors question everything. Here's what they don't teach you in medical school about 16th century anatomy. When the physicians examined Brother Diego, because at this point, even the Inquisition wanted to know what the hell was happening, they found things that shouldn't have been possible. First, his neck should have been broken. The human spine, when subjected to the kind of force generated by an 8-foot drop with a 170-pound body, should have separated between the second and third cervical vertebrae. Brother Diego's spine was intact. Not just intact, there wasn't even a crack. The attending physician, Dr. Alfonso de Mendoza, wrote in his private journal, which wasn't discovered until 1987, in a sealed compartment of the Valladolid Cathedral, "It is as if the neck of this monk is made of iron, not bone and sinew." Second, the rope burns. Normal hanging victims show a deep furrow around the neck, often cutting through skin and muscle to expose the trachea. Brother Diego had bruises, yes, but they were perfectly even, like someone had painted a purple stripe around his throat. No broken skin, no exposed tissue. It was anatomically impossible. Third, and this is where the story gets truly disturbing, they found scar tissue, old scar tissue, around his neck, in places where no scar tissue should exist. Dr. de Mendoza's notes become increasingly frantic as he documents finding evidence of previous hangings, at least 4, possibly 5. "This man has been hanged before," he writes. "Many times before. The scarring suggests." I dare not write what the scarring suggests. The modern relevance here is terrifying. We have DNA testing, MRI machines, and forensic pathology. In 1594 they had bleeding, prayer, and the firm belief that the human body was just a sack of humours waiting to be punctured. Yet even with their limited medical knowledge, they knew something was fundamentally wrong with Brother Diego's physiology. For the Inquisition's most humiliating investigation, the Holy Inquisition did not appreciate being made to look foolish. They'd burned thousands of heretics. They'd broken the strongest wills with their techniques. They'd made grown men confess to flying on broomsticks. But they'd never had a simple execution turn into a 3-day farce that was being talked about in taverns from Valladolid to Venice. What followed was an investigation so secret that even today, only fragments survive in encrypted documents. The Inquisition's own records, discovered in 1992 in a sealed archive beneath the Alcazar of Segovia, reveal their growing panic. They subjected Brother Diego to every test they could devise. They burned him with hot irons, the wounds healed overnight. They starved him for 3 weeks, he gained weight. They even tried drowning him in the Pisuerga River. He was found the next morning sitting on the riverbank, perfectly dry, eating wild figs. The forbidden knowledge here, Brother Diego wasn't just a monk, he was something else entirely. The Inquisition's internal documents begin referring to him not as the accused, but as El Problema, the problem. They consulted with Jewish Kabbalists, Muslim scholars, even a captured Maya priest who'd somehow ended up in Spain. All of them recognized something in Brother Diego that shouldn't exist. A Moorish alchemist named Rashid ibn Hakim, in exchange for his freedom, provided the most chilling assessment: "This man has died many times. His soul is caught between worlds, neither living nor dead. He is what my people call a jinn-bonded, a human who has been touched by something from beyond the veil of death. The hanging cannot kill him because he is already dead." 5. The final joke: when death gave up on October 28, 1594, after 3 days of this nightmare, the Inquisition made an unprecedented decision. They released Brother Diego, not because they believed him innocent, not because they'd given up on executing him. They released him because they were terrified. The official reason given in the public record was insufficient evidence of heresy. The real reason, buried in coded Latin in the margin of the release document, translates roughly to this: "One belongs to the devil, not to us. Let hell reclaim its own." But here's the final subversion that will haunt you. Brother Diego didn't just walk free. He walked out of the Inquisition prison, made his way to the nearest tavern, and proceeded to tell jokes about his own executions to a crowd of increasingly drunk and terrified townspeople. His final joke, recorded by a monk from a nearby monastery who was drinking in disguise: "I've discovered the secret to immortality. You just have to be too stubborn to die and too annoying for hell to keep." He disappeared 3 days later. Some say he walked into the forest and was never seen again. Others claim he founded a monastery in the New World where he taught his unique brand of gallows humor to generations of monks. The most disturbing accounts place him in Rome, where he became a cardinal under an assumed name and spent his remaining years making Vatican officials deeply uncomfortable at dinner parties. The last confirmed sighting was in 1624, 30 years after his supposed executions. A merchant in Seville reported meeting a monk who told the exact same jokes, had the same distinctive scar pattern around his neck, and laughed in the exact same way when asked about death. The monk would have been 90 years old, but he looked no older than 50. The documents describing this encounter were sealed by the Inquisition and marked with a single word: olvidar, forget, but we don't forget. Not when the story is this impossible, not when it challenges everything we think we know about death, about justice, about what it means to be human. Because somewhere, in some monastery or tavern or hidden corner of the world, a monk might still be laughing at death, because death, it seems, is the only thing that can't take a joke. And that, more than any execution or escape, is the most disturbing